So I am Dr. Sam Richards from Penn State University and Konkuk University here in Seoul, where I am also a professor. And I've been teaching sociology for 40 years, both in the United States and in different places around the world. You think about Korea, 5,000 years, right, of some civilization here in this peninsula. And then you're surrounded in three sides by water, and then you have land, right? Now there's a fair amount of land up at where it would be North Korea, although that land was changing a lot. And culture is mixed, right? There was not a defined boundary between Korea, even ancient Korea, and China, and ancient China. It's not. People are mixing and moving back and forth and so on. But nonetheless, it is a culture that has not changed in an exceptional amount for millennia. It has changed in millennia, okay, but modern Korea, in any case, going back many centuries. Now that makes it very fascinating, right? Because if we go to ancient Greece or Turkey or Iraq or what is now Kurdistan or Lebanon or Syria or Jordan or Egypt, we have these areas where lots of population movement is going back and forth, right? And people are bringing foods and spices and recipes from all over the world and trading, like the Silk Road and the Spice Road, Korea didn't have that. And so what you see, anything that Korea received had to come down through the land. I mean, fairly recently it could come on ship, on boats, but really it had to come down through the land. And it's a very, people have this idea, you look at a map and you think, oh yeah, people just travel back and forth. They didn't travel back and forth because, when you go through Korea, it's mountainous, it's rugged, it's difficult. Yesterday I was at the War Museum and Memorial, and I was thinking about these armies going back and forth across Korea, and thinking, oh my gosh, and when I traveled to the south, and I'm traveling along, and I'm seeing, whoa, I had to go up over mountains. So, you have an area here, this interesting peninsula where you have a lot of recipes, ways of eating food, and ways of sharing food that really haven't changed radically in a long period of time. So you have these recipes that are uniquely Korean, that have not been influenced by food, ways of eating and cooking and consuming food from all over the world, because that wasn't happening here. So as Korea has done what Korea has done in the past 20 and 25 years, was really leveraging technology and information and video and film and music and art and it's sort of welcomed, this sort of invited the rest of the world to consume Korean culture, these new modern aspects of Korean culture, right? Well, you think about, K-pop and K-drama and K-film and K-fashion and, K-beauty and all of these things. Well, the rest of the world also starts looking inside of Korea and is going to be interested in the more traditional things. And I was going to want to know, hey, well, here are these snacks, bags of snacks that I get in Korea. So, this is kind of interesting. But, what about the traditional foods and the traditional ways of making foods? And, how about that? And so people are naturally going to come into Korean culture and want to experience those kinds of things that are really most deeply ingrained and have the longest lifespan and longest history here in Korea. And that's actually pretty cool. And kimchi is one of those. As I've said, kimchi, I think there's something about the name too. It's really easy to pronounce. We don't, if you don't speak Korean, you say kimchi. Well, that's how Koreans say kimchi, right? So one thing that, I can say, there are many other foods that I can try to pronounce and I get them wrong. And, I can say bibimbap or something, but I can miss that. But kimchi I can get. And also, kimchi is really, it's easy to travel with, it's easy to share. And people like pickled fermented food around the world. I mean, it's really got a unique flavor to it. So kimchi is one of those foods that when I talk to people about Korea, I'll go home and I'll say, hey, where were you? I was in Korea. And so they, Korea. And then people will say a couple things about Korean food, but kimchi is one of those things that comes up very often. I love kimchi. And I think, first off, where did you find kimchi? Where did you eat kimchi? How do you know about kimchi? And how is it that you really love kimchi? Because it's not the kind of food, again, we have lots of pickled foods that come out of Europe and so on, in the United States. But kimchi is unique, and then I'm always asking, well, how do you know about kimchi? And I think that it is a food that I think it is a globalized flavor that is very specifically unique to here. Although, we have, Japan and China has, pickled fermented foods as well, but it's a pretty unique flavor, I think, here, especially the hot. It's really spicy. I have this idea that as people are watching kind of K-dramas, K-movies, and this kind of stuff, right? As people see people eating kimchi and they talk about kimchi, and people recognize the importance of kimchi to Korean culture, because you often see in shows, people talk about kimchi as really important. I think those of us on the outside of Korean culture see that and say, oh, okay, I want to try that. If that's important to Koreans, and I'm seeing that on the screen that it's important to Koreans, then I think I want to find out what that is and try that flavor. And I think that's probably about the best way to promote kimchi around the world.
Means the curiosity.
Yeah, it's building people's curiosity. One of the things I think that's so valuable for the World Institute of Kimchi is that it's really teaching us so many layers of kimchi, the culture of kimchi, the dietary benefits of kimchi, the science of kimchi, right? So when you start looking at kimchi in that way, especially the science, I've seen a lot of the information coming out from the World Institute of Kimchi that's really talking about the science, and I think, wow, this is really fascinating. It makes me want to dig more into kimchi. And just myself, forgetting about the fact that I'm a kimchi ambassador, it makes me want to know more about what this food is and the value of the food. And the more I learn about the dietary benefits, every time I eat kimchi, I feel like I'm doing something really good for my body. Like my stomach and my intestines are smiling because I'm eating kimchi. So that's why I have it with so many different meals. Truthfully, the World Institute of Kimchi could do a lot to help some of the K-dramas promote kimchi just by showing how kimchi is made historically in communities. When you watch people come together and they make it, and you have the kimchi pots that you see that people put in their gardens. As people see this kind of thing, then it really promotes the local traditions connected to kimchi, and then people want to be part of that. It's really fascinating, so naturally you want to experience this sort of thing. I don't want to go to a fast food restaurant and have it. I want to see how kimchi is made, and then I want to partake of that, traditional kimchi. I sometimes, in the world of film and television, there is this thing called product placement, so maybe somebody, Cask Beer will pay a television producers a certain amount of money, to put a bottle of Cask Beer on the table when actors. And then you have, maybe kimchi, right? Product placement, kimchi. I mean, when I look at this, I think that is so appetizing, right? And then if I'm watching somebody eat this and pull pieces of the cabbage off and eat it, and I think if I'm watching this in a K-drama, I'm thinking, God, I would like to be doing that. I'd like to be sitting at that table pulling pieces off. Right? So now, of course, I do sit at tables and pull pieces off, and so I know how satisfying it is. But I think the World Institute of Kimchi is sort of promoting product placement, but in this case, promoting kimchi placement. To, have, when people are, eating, everyone's eating. In K-dramas, food is everything, right? Everybody's always eating, but really kind of having a few lines or a few pieces where people really explain or say something about kimchi is very valuable. And therefore, that's a thing for the World Institute of Kimchi.